Tonight's debate will be broadcast live over News 12 New Jersey for the next hour and will be streamed for the entire state online at news12.com. We are tight on time, so we will ask our live studio audience to please refrain from applause or comment during the event. Both candidates will alternately be asked a series of questions on a variety of topics. They will have 60 seconds to answer direct questions, and the opponent will have 30 seconds for rebuttal. At my discretion, additional rebuttal time may be allowed, but of course, you're certainly not watching tonight to hear from me, so let's get started. Both candidates have prepared opening remarks and will have 1 minute to deliver them. According to a coin toss held briefly a few moments ago behind stage, Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno, we will begin this evening with you. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Luke. Thank you, Kean University. Thank you, NJ12, for sponsoring this event tonight, because 25 days from today, everyone has a very tough choice and a very clear choice to make. You get to decide whether 25 days from today you go back to where we were in 2009 with high taxes, out-of-control spending, high unemployment, when Senator Barbara Buono was in charge of the Budget Committee and John Corzine was governor, or whether you go with a leader. In 2009, you elected Chris Christie to make the tough decisions so everyone in New Jersey would be better off. He cut taxes, he cut spending. He reached across the aisle to address the tough issues that helped and hurt all of us in New Jersey. He's already showing results. We haven't increased taxes on anyone. We've seen the best job growth in 12 years. We've seen more K-12 education spending than anyone. 25 days from today, ladies and gentlemen, please vote. Vote to continue moving the state of New Jersey in the right direction. Vote for Chris Christie.
Millie Silva, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Luke, and thanks to Kean University for hosting us tonight. If you're watching this debate, it's because you care about the future of New Jersey. Maybe, like me, you're a parent that's worried about the kinds of New Jersey that you will hand down to your children. So tonight, let's set aside this illusion of prosperity and expose the man behind the curtain. Today, 400,000 New Jersey residents are out of work. Poverty is at a 52-year high, 2.1 million struggling day to day. School funding cut $1 billion, property taxes up 20%, and we're at the bottom of the barrel on job creation. There's going to be an effort tonight to convince you that none of this is true, but facts are facts, and 1 hour of nice words cannot erase 4 years of utter failure.
All right, folks. I have to remind you already with the applause. All right, let's get right to it, because as we said, we are short on time. Lieutenant Governor, the first question this evening will be for you. Being the first elected lieutenant governor in our state's history, you have defined the position for the Garden State. But recent polling shows many voters are largely still a little unaware about the lieutenant governor's role in state government. Aside from the succession element of this and a cabinet-level position, please explain for them your vision of the lieutenant governor's role in state government.
Sure. Well, the first thing you have to know, it's not my vision. It's the governor's vision. In February of 2009, when the governor announced that he was going to run for governor, he wanted his lieutenant governor to be in charge of economic development. And when he asked me to run with him, that's what we decided we would do together. The problem was that there was no office of lieutenant governor, so we literally had to create it out of whole cloth. I mean, really, there was no office, there was no salary, there was no desk. We looked around the State House and we decided that the best place for this lieutenant governor would be in the area of the third largest industry in New Jersey, and that was travel and tourism, which was in the Secretary of State's office. So as I stand here today, I'm the lieutenant governor and the Secretary of State. My portfolio includes all of the activities of the Secretary of State and also economic development. In the last 4 years, in terms of economic development, I've visited hundreds of businesses. I've helped to create 143,000 private sector jobs. We've seen job growth each of 4 years in the last 4 years, and that's what this lieutenant governor does.
Ms. Silva, you have 30 seconds to share your thoughts on the role of lieutenant governor and state government.
If the role of the lieutenant governor for the last 4 years has been to make sure New Jersey's economy is back on track and it reflects the values of Chris Christie, then what we are seeing is choices where we are putting corporations and the wealthiest and the working class and middle class families in New Jersey are suffering as a result. There are 400,000 people in New Jersey who are unemployed. We're at the bottom of the barrel in job creation. We have recovered less than 50% of the jobs that we lost under the 2008 Great Recession, despite Pennsylvania and our nation recovering their jobs.
Our next question will be for Ms. Silva. Ms. Silva, this position, Lieutenant Governor's position, was created because in recent years in New Jersey, for a variety of reasons, we've had a little bit of a hard time keeping a governor in office. Now, plainly put, there's a very good chance that somebody on this stage, and we're not talking about me here, will be sitting in the governor's office in the next 4 years. Convince our viewers tonight and those in the audience that you are qualified not just for lieutenant governor, but for governor should you be called upon.
Well, first, let's be clear. Barbara Buono, when she's elected as the governor of New Jersey, fully intends to serve her 4 years. In the event that Barbara were unable to serve office, I am more than qualified to lead the state of New Jersey. For the last decade, I have been an executive at 1199 SCIU. I have negotiated contracts with the private healthcare industry covering $1 billion over 200 contracts. And I have done that in a way where I understand that we need to bring business to the table along with labor and make sure that business is competitive and thriving, but when those workers go home at the end of the day, they get a fair shake. I am a fierce advocate for the people that I represent. I'm a fair and tough negotiator. And I understand what it means to partner so that whatever is the service or business that you provide is one that is going to grow the New Jersey economy and make sure that we all win together.
Lieutenant Governor Guadagno, 30 seconds for you as well.
Well, it's very simple. My record speaks for itself. I've been a federal prosecutor, a state prosecutor. I was an elected public official in my town of Monmouth Beach. I was a volunteer on the Planning and Zoning Board for 19 years before that. I have been an elected sheriff, the first female sheriff of Monmouth County. I ran an office of 650 men and women and 8 labor unions and negotiated with each one of them. I've also worked with the governor for the last 4 years and done the job with the governor for the last 4 years. And those are my qualifications to take over in the event that the governor is unavailable.
All right, folks, as we mentioned, of course, we are here at Kean University, and a few of the students here had some questions for you both. We're going to include them throughout this debate in a video format, and we're going to go to the first one now. This question will be first for the Lieutenant Governor.
Hi, my name is John, and I'm a senior here at Kean University. Most New Jerseyans don't know who you are as well as we should. What should we know about you that helps us make a wiser decision when we go to the booths?
So, this is a personal question, if you will. I guess inform folks like John something personal about yourself. 1 minute for the Lieutenant.
I think John is a senior at Kean University. I think what John could find most relevant is that in the last 4 years, I've helped create 143,000 private sector jobs. If I'm John right now, I'm out looking for a job. I do know this, that if we don't continue to lower our taxes and make the tough decisions to make sure taxes don't rise, then we're not going to create jobs in New Jersey. I've visited hundreds of businesses in the last 4 years as part of my duties and my portfolio. Not a single business told me that raising taxes on anyone was going to create a job. By contrast, Senator Barbara Buono, in the 18 years she was in the legislature, raised taxes 154 times, and she's virtually guaranteed that she's going to do it again. So the way I'm going to help John and every senior graduating from Kean University and any university here in New Jersey is to continue working with this governor for 4 more years to cut taxes, cut spending, make the tough decisions in a bipartisan way that are going to guarantee that John and his friends have jobs.
Ms. Silva, what does John need to know about you when he makes a decision this November?
I want to say congratulations to John and for his studies and the fact that he is so close to earning his degree. I'm the first to graduate from college in my family, and I understand the value of an education. But in New Jersey, we need to make sure that we have jobs so that when people like John graduate, they're able to earn a living and stay here in New Jersey, as opposed to seeing an economy where, once again, we're at the bottom of the nation in job creation, and there may be students, perhaps like John, who may have to choose New Jersey, his home, because there isn't a job for him.
This next question will be given to Ms. Silva. Between you and your running mates, 3 of the 4 candidates in this election are women. Do you believe state government is adequately addressing the issues most important to women? And if not, how would you do it better? 1 minute to you.
I am proud to be on an all-women ticket running for statewide office, and I firmly believe that we need more women in elected office across the state of New Jersey and in this country. What we need to do is make sure that we have leaders who are going to stand up for the women of New Jersey and not do what Chris Christie has done under the last 4 years. He slashed funding, $7.5 million to women's health centers. Today, 33,000 women are unable to access the kinds of services that they need, including cancer screenings and mammograms. Governor Christie is the same person who referred to equal pay laws as senseless bureaucracy. When women today are earning 78 cents on the dollar, I fully believe that there is a disconnect in that Chris Christie needs to understand women should be paid dollar for dollar. Also, I think that it's so important that at a time when so many people in New Jersey are struggling, he vetoed minimum wage legislation. We need to remember there are 250,000 women who would have benefited by increasing the minimum wage from $7.25 to $8.25 tied to the cost of living.
Lieutenant Governor, 30 seconds for you.
In 30 seconds, this is what I'm going to tell you. First of all, very quickly on women's health. Senator Barbara Buono wanted $7 million for a group that she had a relationship with called Planned Parenthood. The governor put $50 million in the federally qualified health care centers who would perform services not just for women's health, but for the entire family. There are 105 federally qualified health care centers in New Jersey. Barbara Buono voted against that $50 million. 7 million Planned Parenthood, 50 to serve all of the women of the state of New Jersey. That's the first thing. Second, what we really need to do for women in New Jersey is create a job. If you really want to help women in the state of New Jersey, you lower taxes, you make New Jersey business friendly again, and you create a job for them.
30 seconds is tight. I know, unfortunately, I must stop you. Thank you, though.
May I?
Yeah, Ms. Silva, if you'd like to respond, and then we'll come back to you, Lieutenant Governor, after that.
When Chris Christie cut $7.5 million in funding for women's health services, he had no problem spending an extra $12 million to hold a special election in October on a Wednesday. That is an example of a disconnect where he put his personal ambitions before the women of New Jersey.
Lieutenant Governor.
I'm a little surprised that Ms. Silva would raise the issue of voting, given her record of voting in the past.
Ladies and gentlemen, please,
But
short on time.
having said that, the $12 million allowed the people of New Jersey to vote on who they wanted to represent them in the Senate today, not who the governor would want to represent them in the Senate or who some Supreme Court would want to represent them in the Senate. So I am proud of the fact that this governor put the issue of who should replace Frank Lautenberg to the vote of the people and put it there now rather than wait 14 months.
Ms. Silva, we can go one more time.
That was a personal attack, and let's be clear. 20 years.
Please, ladies and gentlemen, please. Please, ladies and gentlemen.
20 years of my life, I had advocated on behalf of working people in New Jersey and as well as New York. And I have made it very clear that every election day, we need to make sure that those people who are typically disenfranchised, low-income people, people of color, the elderly and the sick who need rides to the polls, I have done everything possible to make sure that their votes are cast on election day.
Ms. Silva got the first word
May
on
I
this.
respond?
So, Lieutenant Governor, you will have the last word on this exchange.
Okay, very, very briefly, let me tell you, I know you're from New York, but in New Jersey, we have the absentee ballot process. You don't have to have a reason to get a ballot. Tens of thousands of people have already voted in this election, and tens of thousands of people will find their ways to the polls in November, no matter how busy they are, and they will vote and exercise their franchise, a franchise that's guaranteed to us by the Constitution of the United States. There is simply no reason not to vote in an election in New Jersey.
Folks, we're gonna have to move on now, and let's do so to a crucial topic here in New Jersey, one that's dominated so much of what's going on in this state over the last year. Today is day 348. It's been almost a year since Sandy came ashore in New Jersey, and still thousands of people are still trying to recover. As I've said, it's almost a year later. Lieutenant Governor, 60 seconds for you. Why isn't everybody home yet?
First, we have to start with the fact that I live in Monmouth County, and I was a survivor of the storm. And I've seen the progress the state of New Jersey has made in the last year. And I'm proud of the progress the state of New Jersey has made in the last year. We have you have to go back to where we were the day after the storm. We had 360,000 people out of their homes. We've put thousands of people back into their homes. We had businesses that were destroyed. We've created businesses in the last year. We have a ways to go. But let me tell you that we have come farther than anyone ever would have expected in the just not even a year that has passed since Sandy. And there is not a day that goes by that we are not reminded that the progress that we have made, and we should stand up as New Jerseyans and be proud of that progress. People came to our aid. People have saved our lives and our property. I sat with the governor in a room pretty much like this for weeks and weeks and weeks while we made decisions that saved property, saved lives. And I know how hard it is to recover from the storm. I've lived in it. I've seen it. We've made serious progress. We should be proud of that as New Jerseyans.
Ms. Silva, 30 seconds.
The Sandy storm is something that devastated our state, but it tested our resiliency. And we showed that when we come together, we can make things happen. Governor Christie was a part of those efforts. But it is so important that 1 year later, we make sure that no one is left behind. I know that there's a family. Her name is Chrissy, her husband, and her 2 children. As recently as this week, she has called to the state to ask for help with her grant applications and has received no answers. We need to be a state that leaves no one behind. Or Andrea, who has submitted her work to the state so she can rebuild her home. It's
Ms.
been
Silva.
lost 3 times.
Time, Ms. Silva. We're going to stick with Sandy. New Jersey, and this question is for Ms. Silva. Ms. Silva, New Jersey spent millions of dollars on a series of ads designed to raise awareness about our recovery. I'm not going to hum the tune for you, but I want to ask you, how effective was the Stronger Than the Storm campaign? You have 1 minute to respond.
We would have preferred to see the faces of the men and women who are small business owners on the Jersey Shore and have made sure that summer after summer when we travel there with our families, we're able to see that their doors are open for business. The reality is that using $2 million of federal money that could have been spent to make sure that Governor Christie was in the commercials is not a wise use of resources.
Lieutenant Governor.
You know, the face of Sandy, no matter what side of the aisle you're on, was Governor Christie. The face of Sandy before the storm was Governor Christie.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
The face of Sandy after the storm was Governor Christie. And the face of recovery after the storm was Governor Christie. I'm in charge of the Office of Tourism. I understand how well those commercials went over. You're going to see that we're only down 3% after, in terms of travel and tourism, after the most devastating storm that ever hit our state occurred. So I congratulate Governor Christie for being in those commercials because we needed people to know that we were open for business again.
Our next question, we'll start with the Lieutenant Governor. In your opinion, at what point would you declare our state successfully recovered from Sandy? What do we need to achieve to reach that point?
We need to put all of our people back in their homes. And we are spending millions and millions of hours and dollars to make that happen. Now, nobody knows how hard it is to drive by a home that isn't yet recovered from Sandy than someone who drives by that home every day. That's me. And every day I go to work and talk to people about how we can help them get back into their homes. The governor has established a cabinet member level person whose job it is to clean up after Sandy. And that doesn't include just putting people back in their homes. But that's the first priority of this administration, is to make sure those homes that have been destroyed are now moved out, and that the homes that they're going to move into are planted there and open. And so the biggest measure of our success will be to get people back into their homes. We've opened all of the schools that were closed. We've opened all of the roads that were closed. We've fixed all of the water treatment plants that were closed. We now have to work on making sure every single New Jerseyan gets back in their home.
Ms. Silva.
I found something we agree on. We need to make sure that every single New Jerseyan gets back into their homes. But one of the ways that we do that is we make sure that we're cutting through the red tape under the state's program where people are filing their applications in order to make sure they're able to access grant money. It means that when hearings are held, and there were 3 that were held as recently as a month ago, that cabinet level or top level officials from the Christie administration come to those hearings so that they can hear from the survivors of Sandy what is going on with them, and understand and hear from them what are the ways in which the state can be more helpful.
Finally, on Sandy, Millie, this question is for Millie. Silva, this question is for you. We are still in the Atlantic hurricane season, believe it or not, and certainly while we hope to get through the rest of it without getting hit with another storm, we do need to be ready. I want to ask you, what lessons do you believe we've learned from Sandy, and what preparations have we made that made us better prepared for the next storm whenever it arrives? 1 minute.
We have to start by recognizing that climate change is real, that the storm that we faced is likely not the last storm that New Jersey will face. And so we need to make sure that we are bringing all of the stakeholders together, policy experts, in terms of what we need to do to preserve the infrastructure of New Jersey, what we need to do in terms of preserving the environment, and also what we need to do in terms of making sure that jobs are going to be protected as we prepare for the next storm.
Lieutenant Governor.
Thank you, Luke. Look, there was no playbook for Sandy. The governor of the state of New Jersey wrote that playbook. And that playbook now says, there's no time for talk. We need to act. And that's what this governor is doing. He's acting by condemning people who would not provide an easement so we could put dunes to protect our shoreline. And that's got to be the key of where we go with Sandy in this hurricane season and next year's hurricane season. We need to do things, not talk about things. There's no time for people to get together and chat about how to fix the problem. We know how to fix the problem. Get those dunes built now, and that will protect the people of the state of New Jersey. Talk will not.
You have a 30-second rebuttal, Ms. Silva.
Something else that will help is taking responsibility when mistakes are made. So when there are trains that were left in the swamps and then you blame a mid-level manager for being the person who did it, you're not really taking responsibility for your role. And you need to make sure that as we're preparing for the next storm, we're going to protect the infrastructure of New Jersey. But if you don't take responsibility for the mistakes you've made, you are destined to repeat them.
Lieutenant Governor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
It's inconceivable for me to believe that somebody thinks that Governor Christie hasn't taken responsibility. There is no more authentic governor than the one that you have sitting in Trenton right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
What this governor has done in the face of the absolute worst storm, it was a full moon, high tide nor'easter with a Category 1 storm. At the time that storm occurred, there were 54 gas stations open. Every single school was closed. Every single highway was closed. He took responsibility, and he went out there and he fixed it as soon as he could. And I am proud, again, of how this governor has responded to the worst storm to ever hit the state of New Jersey.
Both sides. Goes for both sides. Let's shift gears a little bit and go to public education. Lieutenant Governor, this first question will be for you. Sure. There can be no doubt that New Jersey has some of the best public school districts in the country. But that means little to the parents in this state who have to send their kids to schools in failing districts. Many have said the key to improving our state's educational system in some of these districts is attracting strong teachers, and recently New Jersey overhauled its teacher tenure and evaluation systems. How do you define a good teacher, and what do you believe is a fair way to evaluate them? You have 1 minute.
Well, I know that we're working on core standards right now. I am very proud of what the governor has been able to do in a very bipartisan way to reach across the aisle to give parents a chance to get rid of bad teachers in their district. We all have children. I have a 13-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 20-year-old. And we know that the first day those children go to school and they come home, the first question they ask is, who did you get for a homeroom teacher or a math teacher or a science teacher? Because we know that if they got the wrong teacher, they lose a whole year. So what we're doing right now is finally beginning to evaluate teachers based on their ability to teach. And the standards are being laid out right now so that we can not only ensure that every child in New Jersey has a chance at a good education now, but also we have a chance to get rid of those teachers that can't teach now. Because our children in the failing school districts can't afford to wait for the public school system to fix itself.
Ms. Silva, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Sure. Despite the best schools, we acknowledge that there is an achievement gap, and New Jersey needs to make sure that there is no child who is left without the resources or the educator needed to get the best quality education. But we don't get there if what we do is cut $1 billion from our public school system, and if instead of supporting our teachers and educators by giving them the resources and the tools that they need to be the best teachers possible, we vilify them as if they are the problem. I have a third grader and a fifth grader in the Montclair public school systems, and I am deeply committed to making sure that they get a good quality education, and all of the children of New Jersey.
I have to call time. We're going to be sticking on education, so Lieutenant Governor, I know you have a rebuttal you want to share.
Just very quickly, this governor in the last budget put more money in K through 12 education than any governor in the history of New Jersey. He has also established that any child in a failing school district should have hope to be able to get into a school like you did, Miss Silva. Had a chance to go to a good quality school, get out of a failing school if it's failing, and earn a degree so that someday they could one day be the lieutenant governor of the state of New Jersey.
We're going to stick with education, Ms. Silva. You mentioned funding shortly ago. Funding for public schools continues to be, as you've mentioned, contentious issue in New Jersey. Urban districts, there's been talk about receiving proportionally larger portions of state aid than suburban districts. But factoring in the real-life challenges in our urban schools, how do you guarantee that urban districts get what they need to be successful while also making sure that suburban districts get their fair share of aid? You have 1 minute to respond.
We should not have to have children pitted against each other, or that based on the zip code in which they live in, they're going to determine what kinds of resources they have in the classroom. So the state needs to take responsibility for fully funding our public school system so that every child, whether living in the city or living in the suburbs, is getting a good quality education. We also need to make sure that our teachers are seen as the value that they are in terms of making sure that our children are getting a good quality education. We need to make sure that we are investing in them. We need to make sure that our classrooms are not overcrowded, and it means that we need to make sure we're fully funding our schools. Until we do that, children, whether they live in Paterson or they live in Montclair or they live in Toms River, are not going to necessarily have all of the resources that they should be entitled to.
Lieutenant Governor, you have 30 seconds.
Really, quite simply, I couldn't agree with you more that the zip code shouldn't determine your success. The zip code shouldn't determine how successful you're going to be in a school. I think what you have to do is stop throwing money just at school districts and hope that money gets to the children, because it's not getting to the children. We need to be sure that the funding goes to the right place and does the right thing and really helps children, which is why the governor has proposed the Opportunity Scholarship Act. That's why the governor has proposed inter-district choice. That's why we have begun to give parents hope that they can get out of failing school districts and put their children into a place where they can get a quality education.
I have to call time. Sorry, Lieutenant Governor. Thank you. But this next question is for you, and it's another video question on the topic of education. Have a look at the screen.
Hi, my name is Diana, and I'm a junior at Kane University. Over the past decade, the average student tuition aid grant has declined, while the average cost of tuition has increased, leading to huge student debt. What would each of you do to make a college education more affordable?
Lieutenant Governor, 1 minute to you on higher education.
Sure, fine. This governor has put more money into higher education in the last year by way of capital improvements than any other governor in the history of New Jersey, or since 1988. While Senator Buono was in the legislature, no money was put into capital improvements in our higher education. Right now, as we stand here today, $1.3 billion is going to higher education, to building buildings that are going to give our students, my children, and Ms. Silva's children, and your children, an opportunity to go to school in New Jersey. 172 projects are now ongoing. When Senator Buono was in the Senate, she had a chance to do that program, and she didn't take that opportunity. We have seen more money put into higher education than any governor since 1988, and we should be proud of that record.
Ms. Silva, 30 seconds to respond.
If we truly value higher education, We're going to make sure that it's funded. Under Governor Christie's administration, $173 million was cut from our higher ed institutions. The result is that the colleges and universities are going to increase tuition rates. So at Rutgers, tuition has gone up 14%. We need to make sure that college remains affordable. It's important that yes, we want to make sure that we are building new schools and we're making capital improvements, but what's the point of having fantastic buildings if the college students can't afford to walk through the doors?
Our next question is for Ms. Silva, and it's on taxes and the economy. We'll shift gears a little bit here. According to a recent Kean University poll, more than 70% of likely voters support raising the minimum wage, with 22% opposed to it and 4% not sure. Again, according to a Kean University poll. When voters head to the polls this November, they're going to see a ballot question on there to do just that. How would you encourage them to vote? 1 minute.
I will absolutely encourage every New Jersey voter to vote yes to increase the minimum wage from $7.25 to $8.25, tied to the cost of living, so that we can remove politics from this conversation. But let's be clear, $8.25 is a poverty wage. $7.25 is a starvation wage. There are so many people today who, under 4 years of Chris Christie, are struggling to make ends meet. That increase to the minimum wage affects 250,000 women who, if they were to earn a little bit more in their paycheck, they would be able to put food on the table and gas on the tank. It is wrong that in the state of New Jersey, there are 2.1 million people who are living in poverty, and when we were presented the opportunity to increase the minimum wage to help lift people up, Governor Christie protected millionaires and corporations and vetoed that minimum wage legislation. I ask you to vote yes.
Time. Lieutenant Governor Guadagno.
Just briefly. And I'll have to explain a little bit that there's a difference between a veto and a conditional veto. The governor conditionally vetoed the minimum wage because he didn't want to put the brakes on our economy. In the last 4 years, we have finally turned around an economy that had been at the absolute bottom of the economic food chain since 2009. We've created 143,000 jobs. The National Federation of Independent Businessmen have told us that if we roll in a $1 increase in the minimum wage overnight, we will put the brakes on our economy, lose 31,000 jobs, and I know most of those jobs are small business jobs. What the governor suggested, and what Senator Bono has declined to do, is a compromise. Roll it in over time so that these small businessmen aren't hurt and can plan for an increase in minimum wage.
But this next question is for the Lieutenant Governor, and you'll have 1 minute to answer. It's no secret the number one concern for homeowners in New Jersey is their annual property tax burden. It has been for years, and it's a hot topic in every New Jersey election on every level. Is it realistic to think that you will be able to do anything about it, or is this going to continue to be something that folks like me ask folks like you at news conferences?
You know, the signature piece of legislation this governor has been able to get passed through this legislature in a bipartisan way is the property tax cap of 2%. In New Jersey, a property tax cap of 2% is life-changing. It should be something we all stand up and applaud, because that's the way we're going to lower taxes in New Jersey. It's already become it's already beginning to work. We've seen property taxes go down at a lower rate for the first time in 20 years. We, in the next term, will close some of the holes that still exist in that property tax. We will work to get shared services, more shared services worked, and civil service reform. We will also work very hard to do something that the senator has voted against time and time again, and that is get rid of sick pay payouts. The way we can help the people of New Jersey is by closing the loopholes in that 2% property tax and make it less expensive to run government. If we continue with the sick pay payouts that cost the taxpayers billions of dollars, then we will never be able to see property tax go actually down in our lifetime.
We were talking about property taxes, and it is one of the first promises that Governor Christie broke to the people of New Jersey. In 2009, he stood a stage just like this, and he promised that he would not touch property tax relief. It was the first promise that he broke. He slashed property tax relief to our seniors and our middle-class families so that today those people don't have the hundreds of dollars that they would rely on in order to be able to make ends meet, especially at a time where they are struggling so hard with this economy. Let's be clear. Take a look at your homeowner's bill. In Jersey City, people are paying 32% more in taxes. In Toms River, 37%.
Time. But our next question is for you, Ms. Silva, and it has to do with pensions. Reforming the pension system is one of the current administration's calling cards, and yet there are still people in state and local government who collect a pension and a salary, known colloquially as double dipping. How important is it that this practice be ended in New Jersey? You have 1 minute.
It is absolutely important that pension fraud and abuse be something that is ended here in the state of New Jersey. Senator Barbara Buono took on this issue as early as 2006, where she said that it was so important that we make sure that we are getting rid of any abuse in the system. But at the same time, we're going to meet our obligation to the men and women who have paid into that pension system, that when it's their moment to retire, they have the opportunity to retire with dignity.
Lieutenant Governor, you have 30 seconds.
I don't disagree at all. I think Ms. Silva and I agree 100% that we need to continue pension reform. I think the key part of that has to be eliminating sick pay payouts, something that Senator Buono just continuously refuses to do. Other than that, we can continue to eliminate double dippers. When I took this job, I gave up my job teaching at Rutgers Law School because the governor believed that one public paycheck is enough. That's what I believe, and I think that's something that we can work together with once the governor gets a second term. I look forward to working with Ms. Silva on that issue.
Time. Lieutenant Governor, this question's for you. According to an annual study by CNBC, New Jersey ranks 42nd in business climate. Now, that is behind our closest neighbors, New York and Pennsylvania. How do you propose we fix this?
Well, I disagree with the 42nd. You have to look at how we're measured. I mean, we're 49th when it comes to taxes, and that's the problem. If you want to move up in the rankings, you're going to have to lower taxes. And there's only one person standing and representing an administration on this stage right now who's promised to lower your taxes, and that's me. That's the first thing. Second, I think you have to look at Forbes. Just last week came out, Luke, with a study that said that we had moved from 44th in 2009 when Senator Buono was working with John Corzine and in charge of the Budget Committee, 44 to 32. We've jumped 4 points just in the last year alone. I add into that Business Facilities magazine, a very well-recognized and accepted measure of economic improvement, numbers us number 5 in terms of being one of the 5 most improved states in the country. So we're moving in the right direction. The question for your voters, and that's what you need to decide tonight, is whether you want to move in the direction that we begun in 2009 or go back to the days of John Corzine and Barbara Buono.
So is it Forbes
It's Forbes.
or CNBC? Which of the poll do you believe, Ms. Silva?
What I understand is that businesses are going to come to a state when there is a qualified workforce and there's a good quality of life for their employees. What we need to do in New Jersey is to make sure that we're putting the 400,000 people who are out of work back to work. And the way that we do that is by partnering with business and our higher ed institutions to make sure we develop programs at our community and vocational schools to get people back to work. We need to make sure that our college students are earning degrees in science and in technology so that they can be a part of a 21st century economy.
All right. We're going to go back to the video screen now. Ms. Silva, this one's for you.
My name is Shaquan, and I'm a junior here at King University. My question pertains to the Oyster Creek Nuclear Power Plant, which is amongst the oldest in the country. It's scheduled to close in 2019, and it powers just around 600,000 homes. What can each of you do to ensure that New Jersey energy needs will be met in the future?
So energy, obviously a big concern for not just homeowners, but businesses too. 1 minute to you, Ms. Silva.
Sure. Thanks to Shaquan for that question. One of the things that we need to make sure that we are doing is that we are investing in clean air and technology so that we have an opportunity to make sure that the people of New Jersey are getting the energy needs that they have met. but also that we're making sure that we're protecting our environment. Under Governor Christie, one of the things that happened is that we withdrew from RGGI, which was about making sure that we were partnering to limit greenhouse gas emissions here in the state. We believe that it is important that we rejoin RGGI and also recognize that there are opportunities to both protect our environment, have access to good energy, and also create jobs. And whenever those opportunities exist, we need to seize them.
Lieutenant Governor, was it wrong to go out of RGGI?
Very quickly, let me tell you that the problem with RGGI right now, and just so everybody understands, what RGGI will do and has done is raise your taxes. And New Jersey was the only person in the region who had RGGI. Now, why would I try to create an economy and bring jobs to New Jersey with one hand tied behind my back? This governor has gone in a different direction. This governor is against coal-fired plants. This governor is against drilling. This governor is against LNG. This governor has endorsed combined heat and power. This governor has been in charge of a state that's number 2 in solar panels in the country.
Time. We're going to stick with the video, but this one will be for the Lieutenant Governor, so I'll step out of the way again.
Hi, my name is Marie. I'm a senior at Kane University. We've seen some terrible tragedies involving gun violence in our country. My question is, do you think that we need more gun restrictions in New Jersey, or do we have enough in place?
Lieutenant Governor, you have a law enforcement background. How do you respond? 1 minute.
In 1 minute, let me tell you that this governor and the state of New Jersey has the second most stringent gun control laws in the country. This governor has presented and signed into law a comprehensive attack on violent criminals who would use a gun during the course of an offense. And this governor and this administration has more experience in law enforcement than Millie Silva and Senator Buono have combined himself. The governor has been the United States Attorney for 7 years. I was the first woman sheriff of Monmouth County. I was a federal prosecutor and a state prosecutor. You're not going to find an administration who is as tough on crime as Governor Christie and Kim Guadagno.
Ms. Silva, 30 seconds to respond.
I'm a parent of 3, and I need to know that have the peace of mind that if my children are playing at a playground or walking down the street, they will not be the victims of gun violence. There are too many families across New Jersey who have that fear because there are too many guns out on the streets. But when we had the opportunity to do things like making sure that we're limited the amount of bullets that are in a clip, and every bullet less means a potential life that you could save, we need to make sure that we're enacting that kind of legislation. And if we can do it in New Jersey, it's the right thing to do. We shouldn't run from common sense gun reform.
We're going to stick with social issues now. Ms. Silva, this question is for you. We now know New Jersey's highest court is very soon going to grapple with the idea of same-sex marriage here in New Jersey. The other night, both of your running mates made their positions on this issue very clear, but running mates don't always agree on everything. So what's your position on this?
On marriage equality?
Yeah, 1 minute to respond.
I believe that marriage equality is a civil rights issue, just as this year we commemorated 50 years of struggle for civil rights for African Americans across our country. It is long overdue that couples have the opportunity in order to be able to celebrate the union that they have together.
Lieutenant Governor, 30 seconds.
35 states have voted on the issue of same-sex marriage, and New Jersey could have been one of them. Had the legislature decided not to. You know, if it had been on the ballot on November 5th, you could have same-sex marriages in New Jersey on November 6th. I have been in Trenton for 4 years, and I suspect, Ms. Silva, when you become more familiar with Trenton, you will notice, too, that it's not safe to leave. It is not a great idea to leave issues like changing an institution that's been here for 2,000 years in the hand of our elected public officials, or even more importantly, in the hands of the Supreme Court.
Ms. Silva, would you care to respond?
Sure.
Folks, we are coming close to time. Please hold your applause.
The majority of New Jerseyans support marriage equality, and it is time for Governor Christie to get out of the way of history and recognize the court decision that provides that on October 21st, anyone who is in a same-sex relationship have their opportunity to celebrate their relationship and get married if they want to.
Ms. Silva got the question first, so would you like another 30 seconds?
I didn't hear you, Luke. Sorry.
Since she got the question first, we'll give you 30 seconds to respond. If you
Well, the answer is really quite simple. If the people do support same-sex marriage, as you suggest,
they do,
then let's let them vote on it. It's very simple. I put more trust in the people of the state of New Jersey to make the right decision for them than I would in the 120 people sitting in Trenton. I've gotten a lot of time to know them.
Lieutenant Governor, our next question is for you. Earlier in the show, we talked a little bit about the differences in the quality of education between urban and suburban districts, but let's take a similar look in terms of overall quality of life and commitment to New Jersey's urban areas. What steps should the state take, in your opinion, to improve the quality of life in New Jersey's cities?
It's very simple. Jobs, jobs, jobs. And this administration has created 143,000 jobs in the state of New Jersey in the last 4 years. Year after year after year, all 4 of the years we've been in office, we've created jobs. And that's how we're going to turn around our urban centers. We also have corporate incentives. Those corporate incentives are very interesting because they allow businesses to stay in New Jersey. You know, I talked to Panasonic before they talked about leaving the state of New Jersey. They ended up in Newark, as you know. And Panasonic said, I can't afford to live here. I can't afford to die here. I'm out of here unless I get some incentives. And they were taking all of their jobs out of New Jersey and to Atlanta. Had we not stepped in to help them, they are now in Newark helping the people in the urban areas of Newark.
Ms. Silva, 30 seconds.
We need to have an economic strategy that is not just one, which is what we've seen under 4 years of Chris Christie. So $2.1 billion is handed out to corporations without making sure that they're keeping and creating jobs in New Jersey. And we are facing the consequence of it. So that today we are still at the bottom of the nation in job growth. That's a problem. In our urban communities, we need to make sure that we are creating jobs. We need to make sure that we're increasing the minimum wage tied to the cost of living. We need to invest in our schools, our community colleges, and our vocational schools so that our students can earn a degree and be ready for a 21st century economy.
Time. Ms. Silva, this question is for you. Politicians in Washington, right now, I presume, are continuing to fight over the Affordable Care Act. But let's focus specifically on what happens here in New Jersey. Did Governor Christie make a mistake by deciding to use the federal exchange instead of creating our own state exchange? 1 minute.
Absolutely. When Governor Christie decided that he was going to allow the federal government to set the exchange for New Jersey, here's what happened. We lost the opportunity to make sure we brought into the state federal money that would make sure that the 900,000 people who today are eligible to purchase affordable health insurance through that marketplace would actually know about it. It is so important that we make sure that the 900,000 people know the program exists. The marketplace has opened on October 1st, and it is long overdue that people be able to have the health kind of coverage that they so desperately need in New Jersey.
Lieutenant Governor.
I think you heard on Tuesday the governor's response to this. There were 3 options. The governor picked one of the 3. It's perfectly legal, perfectly acceptable, and the exchange opened on October 1st. I fully expect that people, when they go to that exchange, will get the affordable care that they're entitled to. I also have to add that the governor has expanded Medicaid in New Jersey in the last couple of years and has also increased money to our hospitals. And we could get back into the federally qualified health care centers with the extra $50 million he gave to service all of the women and children and families in New Jersey also.
This question, our next question, will be for the Lieutenant Governor. This issue came up the other night as well, but both of your running mates shared their thoughts on the legalization of marijuana for recreational use. Again, we'll go back to another recent Kean University poll, which showed less than half of voters have a problem with legalizing some amount of pot for recreational use. About 39% supporting, 12% not sure. Do you, or could you ever see yourself supporting some legalization of marijuana?
With my background as a former sheriff, former federal prosecutor, and the mother of 3 children, I would never support legalizing marijuana. I think that's something that we all agree on. This governor has often said no life is disposable. If you have a disease, you can treat that disease. We should treat that disease. We should give our addicts a second opportunity. So we have proposed, and we are already expanding our drug courts so that we can work to get them a second chance on life.
Ms. Silva, could you ever see yourself supporting some form of marijuana legalization?
We do not support the legalization of marijuana, but what we do support is the decriminalization of small amounts of marijuana. When you take a look at what happens, certainly in our urban communities, when African American young men are arrested for having small amounts of marijuana and perhaps then are marking their records and not being able to make sure that they have a good future, there's something that we need to do there.
This next question will be first for Ms. Silva, and it applies to both of you. Before you both became candidates for public office, you are already accomplished in your professional fields. Tell our audience, at what point did you make the decision to run for public office and why? Ms. Silva.
I decided to run for public office when Barbara Buono called me and said, will you run with me so that we can make sure that we're going to put working and middle-class families first, so that we can make sure that our children and our young people have the best kind of quality education that they can have, and what we can do together when we make sure that in this economy, we're going to grow jobs, we're going to lift people up by building out the middle class. I had to say yes because it is a continuation of my lifelong work. More than 20 years ago, I started working in low and moderate income communities, organizing around issues of affordable housing and livable wages. For the last decade, I have been the proud leader of healthcare workers across the state who leave their homes each and every day to take care of someone else's family, the sick, the elderly, and those who are less abled. But when they want to come home, they want to make sure they can take care of their families. Those healthcare workers are no different than the rest of New Jersey. We want to make sure that New Jersey is one where we're putting working and middle-class families first.
Time.
So given the opportunity, I had to say yes.
Time. Lieutenant Governor, why go through the electoral process?
Very quick answer to that, and it's an easy one. He's sitting in the front row over here, and he's 13 years old. I got involved in politics and public service because of my children. And I saw something in my small community that I didn't like. And I understood I had a choice. I could stand up and do something about it or sit down and shut up. And I thought with my training as a federal prosecutor and a state prosecutor, I could add something to my community.
Time.
And that's what I've done.
This question is for the Lieutenant Governor. During the last 6 months, News 12 New Jersey has done a series of reports on a landfill in Roxbury, and residents there are concerned the state hasn't been assertive enough about protecting the environment as it should be. What balance would you seek to achieve between protecting our natural beauty while not stifling business development?
Well, I think we've seen what this governor will do. It's really quite simple. When a private institution was causing so much trouble for the people of Roxbury, he stepped in. He took action immediately. He has taken over the dump, and it really is a dump, and is now managing it. It's not being done fast enough. We're working very hard to do it as quickly as humanly possible. We took action, and that is, I think, the calling card of this administration. We don't stand around and talk and study and wait. We stand up. We took over a private institution so that we could get it done and get it done right and get it done fast for the people in the Roxbury area.
Ms. Silva, balancing the environment and business development.
It doesn't have to be an either-or situation. You really need to make sure that, especially now in the 21st century, we invest in clean air technology and in other sources that are safe for the environment and use it as an opportunity to create jobs. Because when in the state you have 400,000 people who are without work, you want to make sure that you are creating jobs, and if in the process we're also making sure that we're taking care of our environment, it's the right thing to do.
Well, that ends a very speedy round of questioning. Thank you so much to both of you. We're going to go right to closing statements now. Again, according to that coin flip, we're going to start first with the Lieutenant Governor. A minute to you.
Well, I started by saying 25 days from today, you have a very clear choice. And that choice is whether we go back to 2009, high unemployment, high runaway spending, runaway taxes, or we continue moving the state in the right direction with a leader who's not afraid to stand up and tell you what he means and do what he, say what he means and do what he means, make the tough decisions that have to be made, and reach across the aisle. We are beginning to make progress. We have created private sector jobs. We have addressed the issue of education. We have addressed the issue of property taxes, and we have a lot further to go. If you go to the polls 25 days from today, I ask you not only for your vote, but I ask you to continue the progress we have seen in the last 4 years. Thank you.
Ms. Silva, the floor is yours for a 1-minute closing statement.
Thank you, Luke, Lieutenant Governor, and to Kane University. Your choice couldn't be more clear. Another 4 years of Chris Christie means another 4 years of opportunity, but only for the privileged few. Barbara Buono has a vision for all of New Jersey. Under Chris Christie, working people are struggling to get by, yet the wealthiest are not paying their fair share. Barbara Buono will put working and middle-class families first. With Governor Christie, young people who had no choice about how to get here to the United States are not afforded access to an affordable college education. Barbara Buono believes that tuition equality will help those students to fulfill their dream. Under Governor Christie, decreased funding for our schools and our educators disrespected. Barbara Buono will put our students and our teachers first. You see, the truth is, this isn't Chris Christie's New Jersey. It's our New Jersey. And it's time.
All right, folks. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that, of course, ends tonight's debate. Thank you so much for joining us. With the little time we have left, and I'll try to do it quickly, we'd like to thank our host, Kane University, and, of course, Kane University President, Dr. Delwood Farahi, the New Jersey Election Law Enforcement Commission, and, of course, our candidates, Millie Silva and Lieutenant Governor Kim Guadagno.
It's really well done. How much fun was that? I'm glad this is done.
And, of course, all of you at home, thank you so much for joining us this evening. If you